Sundance, 2009, and I had produced a small film that was in dramatic competition, and my director, John, was a horror fan. And he said, you gotta come see this Norwegian Nazi zombie film. It's a midnight film called Dead Snow. It was amazing. And I came back that January and tracked Tommy down and his representatives. I had just started with Adam McKay and Will Ferrell's company, Gary Sanchez Productions, and Tommy was one of the first meetings that we had, and I know we were Tommy's first Hollywood meeting. And it was in that meeting that he pitched us Hansel and Gretel Witch Hunters. It was exactly what you'd imagine from the straightforwardness of the title. And it was a concept that he's had since he was in film school in Australia.
For the exam film, you first had to go and pitch an idea for the teachers, like we were pitching for a studio. And I had this idea for a long time about Hansel and Gretel, what happened when they grew up. And yeah, it seemed plausible to me that they would become witch hunters.
You move, you die.
So I went up to my teachers and I pitched the idea, and the teacher said to me, Tommy, you should never speak of this idea again until you're in front of a Hollywood producer, and I guarantee you will sell it. And the first meeting, the first day in Hollywood, I pitched the idea, and they bought it. So he was right.
Take them into the forest now.
Well, the true story that most kids read, whether it's some of the darker interpretations of the Grimm's fairy tale or the ones that have been cleaned up a bit, all kind of share the common element that the father is reluctantly or coerced by a bit of an evil stepmother to take the kids out into the forest.
I'll be back soon.
Wait!
The kids find their way back with breadcrumbs and rocks, but ultimately they're left to fend for themselves and get lured into the Candy Witch's house, where they're fattened up to be eaten, but they turn the tables and cook the witch. And I think for most of the versions of the fairy tale, that's where the story ends. And for Tommy, that's, minute 3 of the movie, and that's where his story begins.
I remember for Hansel and Gretel, I had this cassette that I used to listen to with the whole fairy tale.
Once upon a time, there was a farmer who fell in love with a white witch.
And it was brutal, and you listen to this when you're 5, 6-year-old, it makes an impression. So I have a strong memory of that from my childhood, and just how dark and gruesome it was. I remember coming over to do meetings in LA, and on the plane I actually saw Hurt Locker with Jeremy, and I couldn't take my eyes off of the movie and him, and I just thought he would be perfect for Hansel. I didn't want a clean action star because, even though it's an action movie, I really wanted to sell the fact that these guys have a really dark past. And with Jeremy, he's kind of have that naturally, He's a great leading guy and he can carry an action movie, but he also got this darkness to him, You kind of feel that unpredictability that I loved with him.
We sent him an image that we'd created for the studio of Hansel and Gretel walking away from a funeral pyre.
The initial attraction to do the movie came from a little one sheet that I got. Before I even got the script, and it was something that they ended up shooting in the movie. It's of Hansel and Gretel walking away. There's a fire going, and a witch burning in the background. He has a shotgun, and she's got this crossbow, and she's kind of walking away. And it's just a poster. It's interesting to me. I don't know why, but it was.
And we met him not that long after. He read the script, and he really liked it, and he wanted to do it. And when me and my producers met him, we discovered immediately that Jeremy has a sense of humor. But you haven't really seen that in his movies yet. He's got this adventurous feel to him. He's got a great, leading man quality to him. But he's also funny, and to addition to that, he's got this darkness that kind of separates him from a normal action hero.
He's just hands down a great actor, and the ability to have a great actor to play Hansel in a fantasy world, it grounds the entire movie. What's real to Hansel is therefore real to the audience, and so Jeremy brings that world to life in a great way.
We know that many of your children have gone missing, but killing an innocent woman will not bring them back.
So I got my first pick for that, which was amazing, and it was so fast. And actually, part of the stuff that Jeremy responded to was exactly that, the darkness in their past and how that bond to his sister and how we can really, have fun with that.
One child was taken. She didn't touch the other 2.
Uh-oh.
That's weird.
That's so weird. It is strange. It is strange,
Yeah.
Okay. When I read the script, I certainly was attracted to the characters and the idea of it. And again, it really wanted it, to me, to be based on that relationship. To me, I want to rely on the character follow through all the craziness that was about to ensue, but if you don't care about them, then who cares? It's too thin. I'm not interested.
Where have you been?
What happened to your face? Gretel? Who did this to you? Who did this to you?
If that bond, the brother-sister relationship doesn't work, the whole movie is kind of just another action movie. So it was really important to find somebody, you know, that they really connected to straight away.
Your mayor has done a very smart thing. He hired us. My name is Gretel.
We discovered Gemma later in the casting process, and again, thrilled that we found her, because we actually think she did create that balance perfectly. A brother and sister where there was chemistry between them. She's still sexy in the movie, but you buy their sibling relationship.
Gretel is the brains behind the operation, and he's the brawl, you know, he's the action, he's the joker, he's the show-off, and she's, you know, she lets him do that. That's how they work. She's very much more the watcher and the serious one. Move! The thing that I loved about the script, and I think I can speak the same for Jeremy when reading it, was that the heart of it is a brother and sister relationship.
Gemma is a real gem, for sure. We got very lucky finding her. We did read a lot of really great actresses. It took a long time, but the real trick, I feel like, with just finding the right girl for this was, you know, obviously we had kind of look alike, but there was also a weight that she brought without really having to do much.
Jeremy and I, from the offset, just got on immediately. You know, we had that sort of banter, and we behaved like brother and sister on an offset, and, you know, he'd always rip the shit out of me and vice versa, and yeah, and that fed into our work, you know, so that was great.
And then, you know, actually shooting it was as I imagined it to be, and even more so sometimes. There was a lot of room for character and developing amazing bond and relationships and behavior in a really fantastic world, that there's no rights or wrongs because it's a fairy tale.
When I wrote the script, I really tried to bring in elements of the female action hero that's always worked in movies and try to incorporate them into Gretel. She should kick ass just as well as Hansel, and it should look like she's loving doing it, and Gemma did.
Well, I knew that when I took on the character that the farthest away from me was the physicality. I don't know, I just don't have that sort of strong warrior-like physicality. I'm more fluid and lucid. So I decided that the best thing to do was to train for 3 weeks. I came in before anybody, and I met up with the stunt team and worked with them on my physicality and learned how to fight. It was so helpful because it just rooted me and made me much more present. And my stunt double, Maya, who's just basically as Gretel. So I was like, great, here's a character study as well. I can study her. So as much as I could, I did as much as the fights as I could. But then, you know, can't do everything. They won't let you. Damn it. The hour has come! The grand wet time!
Famke's great. She has a very, very powerful presence that she certainly brings to Muriel. I think that the challenge of that part for her or any actress was the prosthetics. It's not the most fun to have to get underneath literally that kind of makeup and then perform. But she did a great job under those particular challenges.
She has all the qualities that Muriel needed, you know. She's got this presence, you know, she's physical, you know, she's taller than me. She's very physical, you know, a great physical presence. You can really feel that she can beat up Hansel and Gretel easily.
Gretel, famous witch hunter.
Who are you?
And yeah, she has this duality, you know. She can be beautiful in one moment, and then when she turns, you know, she is their biggest adversary yet.
Oh my God.
She is after Gretel's heart. And I think with any good old villains, they will stop at nothing to pursue that mission, to set that goal that they have in mind. And so she wants that heart, and she's going to get it. Sometimes she toys with them, sometimes she makes fun of them, and sometimes she's downright, you know, rude and and short and snappy with them. It was just so fun toying with them and you're really embracing the character and going for it.
She's definitely one to be feared, even for us. And she has these powers of, like, you know, she can kind of teleport, or it's kind of mysterious. She's a witch. She can do a lot of things, right? And what separates her as a witch from the other witches is that she can morph into a crowd and really blend in. Now, mind you, Funk was a supermodel, so I don't know if she's really blending in anywhere, especially in Augsburg, where the average set of teeth is like 3 in that town. So I think anybody kind of stands out. But yeah, she's great. She's pretty free and pretty intense. She has a good time with the role, that's for sure.
I'm not going to have this bitch and a scoundrel of a brother coming into my town, telling me what to do.
Peter is one of my favourite actors. He doesn't know this. And so when I heard that he was in this film, I was thrilled because then I went, yes, Tommy's got great taste. He's a real chameleon and can play anything, he can do anything really. Has this great presence when you meet him. He's so tall and big and booming voice and yet can be so pathetic as well. And that's what we wanted.
Coming into my town, telling me what to do. In the beginning, my character is slightly broad and over the top, as many characters from the beginning are. Then they slowly become very human and very real and very scary. They have brought a witch, a live witch, into my office, into our town. The humans become as scary as the witches. And that was Tommy's idea about the movie, which fit my character perfectly. This time, I do the talking, you do the bleeding. It's very, very, very dark. But the Grimm brothers, all their stories are very, very dark. But you can also see them with a little bit of humor now and then. And humor also goes along with Tommy, the director and writer. He's a very funny guy, and that's why I like him. He's from northern Norway on the border to Finland. Up in northern Norway, similar to northern Sweden and northern Finland, it's a very morbid humor. The humor is very morbid. I'm from the north of Sweden too, and I think that's a way to survive in a way.
Did it do well in Norway, that joke? It's a very international cast, but you know, this is Tommy's doing. Tommy really made this a much more international production than most American movies ever are. It's really nice to see. I feel very much at home because I was born and raised in Amsterdam. I am European, and I like it. I think it's spectacular. I think it's fantastic that he's done it this way.
Yeah, we have this brilliantly diverse mix of people, which adds to the pot, of, this bizarre world that we're creating and this mysticism and all that.
Okay, now here we go with the slime in position.
Of course, there's so much that's so gruesome and visually extreme. Yet the humour in it is silly in a way, and that's what defines Tommy's style. It's not taking itself too seriously. It is fun. It's supposed to be fun. When I chop Muriel's head off at the end with a spade, it looks ridiculous and it's fun. It's funny. Whereas if this was like a gritty drama, you would be horrified.
I wanted to keep, the brutality of the fairy tale, but the violence in the movie was meant to be fun. It should always have this entertaining feel to it. But I love gore. There's no hiding that. And it's just finding the right dosage of gore and blood. You have horror and you have comedy and you have tons of gore. And I thought, in my head, it's always, if you can successfully match those elements into one movie instead of just going for one direction, it's always somehow a bigger experience, and a more fun experience. And so that was my goal with Hansel and Gretel, to take all these things that I love and try to incorporate in this action story.
And 3, 2, 1, action! Well, I'm gonna get another beer. Anyone else? And cut!
It's Carrie all over again.
It was kind of a mix between everything I love with movies. Actually, in all the movies I made, I played one of the leads.
Thank you, Wolfgang.
I wasn't planning on being in front of the camera on this one, but somebody fell out, somebody had to step in. And I said, all right, I'll do it. I got to wear a wig and be Peter's second in command that day. It was a lot of fun. And I got my head smashed by the troll, which was fun. I really die horribly, which is great.
How do you best kill a witch?
Burning is the best way, because that's the only way to be safe.
Burning, yeah, of course.
Burn them all. Fire is the only thing that really kills a witch.
And fire is the thing that witches fear the most.
And so what Muriel wants is a potion that will make witches fireproof, immune to fire. And along with all the other ingredients that she's gathered in the cave, which include, in our story, a child born in every month. And there's one key ingredient.
It's of no use if it doesn't last.
I can make it last.
And that's the heart of a white witch. And what Gretel doesn't know when the movie begins is that is in fact what she is, because she doesn't know the truth about who her mom was. So our movie has a bit of an origin story that is a departure from the fairy tale for sure.
As we go through the town hunting witches, we realize that we're the ones being hunted. And that changes the whole game. And then we're up against not one or two or three, but 60, 70, 80, 90 witches.
Shoot anything that moves.
So we kill witches, kill witches, kill witches.
And we had a really good time.
We really want to reinvent witches as a villain, because I think, you know, when you hear about witches in movies, you think about a woman with a big nose and a big hat stirring her pot, and we really want to make them something completely different. So much fun just sitting there riffing on, all right, let's try to shut her eye and have some white yellow goo coming out of it and see how that looks. I mean, it's just, it's like children in a playground just sitting there talking about disgusting stuff. And they had some insane witches, like the witch with a huge tumor coming out of her throat, or the witch with horns growing out of her back. We really went berserk on that one, which was a lot of fun. I don't know if the actors appreciated the prosthetics as much as I did. We have some sexy witches, and yeah, they have this ability to lure you in if they want, but underneath they're really monsters.
We started with a company called Spectral Motion that does a lot of work with Guillermo del Toro, and came highly recommended for our key witches, Muriel and the Horned Witch and the Red-Haired Witch.
We created with Tommy coming to my studio and the two of us sitting down and talking about what Muriel was going to look like. We created an idea that she would have cracks in her face and she would be, pale, ashen, and just a really sort of the statue that came to life kind of, look. But still organic, she had to feel real. She had to feel like she wasn't made out of stone. She had to look like she was made of flesh somehow. So we came up with a few looks for Tommy to check out. And then once he sort of distilled those down to a couple of looks, we put it all together into one drawing, and that became the blueprint for Muriel.
There are no children here. Here. There's only death! I have to say, I've never done prosthetics before in a movie. I've never worn contact lenses. I've never changed appearances like that, ever. Now, I know that for every character that you play, the way you look, what you wear, how your hair looks, your makeup looks, is instrumental in how you play the character. But to go through a transformation like this, having these prosthetics glued on my skin, it's a process that takes hours. It was really difficult in the beginning, but I think the end result, once I embraced it and I stopped fighting it, it's so empowering because I look so scary. I'm scared of myself, the way I look, that it kind of gives you this freedom to do whatever you want to do. You can be as ugly and nasty and mean as you possibly want to be, because you don't have to worry about all the things that you normally worry about as an actor. So it's really liberating, and I do think that it was the right choice for the character. I love the costume, the look of Muriel in this beautiful long dress, all the details, the leather, the feathers. Of course, I'm blind once the contacts go in, so I've had a few fumbling moments, but, I try to do it as elegantly as I can. As the queen of the witches, it's very fun having the little sidekicks.
The witch hunt is in you. I can smell their stench.
Your plan is working. Yes. You know, there definitely is that camaraderie that's created through the whole process of getting us ready. Sister will be burned on their pyres!
You can't hold back when you're portraying a witch. And you can see at the end sequence where there's a big Sabbath, you know, she's having her big speech. She's just letting everything out.
After tonight, no sister will be burned on their pyres! No sister will be ashes on the ground! Now we feast!
That's a lot of witches.
We used a different company in Berlin to literally cast the tapestry of witches that look like they've been called from all over the world to come to the final set piece.
When I first saw the witches, I was like a kid in a candy store. Like, this is my genre of film.
I want your brains!
One thing that's so remarkable about the witches is that all the women who are playing witches are all incredibly beautiful. And it's such a flip to see how pretty these women are, then how grotesquely ugly they become. It's pretty great.
I have to say one thing. I was very, very happy that I didn't have to do all the prosthetics myself. One day they had 52 here doing their makeup test and like 22 guys working with them. And they had to start at 3 o'clock in the morning to be ready 6 o'clock. One witch had 3.5 to 4 hours of the prosthetics.
They made people look repulsive, and you know, there was one that had a tumor growing out of its face, and you really were quite like horrified when you saw them. It's the thing that I love the most about this film so far is the style, this comedy horror style.
And I like Tommy's aspect that some of the witches are so sexy and cool. And they're not all just those witches.
You know, we split the witches in 3 categories. We have the kind of the close-up witches that require, you know, 2 to 3 hour makeup time. I think we had about 10 of them. And then we had 10 other that we hid the face with clothing, or that we didn't have to do makeup on their eyes or mouth, you know, parts of the face. And then we had the background witches, which just have pullover masks that you can stick in the background. That was a huge, of course, assignment for the makeup team every day for 2 weeks to prepare 30 or 40 witches. Bam! And of course, a lot of choreography, a lot of visual effects, a lot of practical effects.
It's a huge, huge action sequence, and what's really, really great about it is they practically built the entire set, except for one part they had a green screen. But most of it is all practical. Even the witches flying on brooms, all practical. It's not CGI. They're all on wires or whatever it might be. It's awesome. I mean, there's this scene where I come down from the top of the mountain.
Wish me luck.
Come down around, and literally there's 60 witches there.
Listen to me carefully. If you let my sister and the children go now, I'll consider not killing each and every one of you.
And then I kill the witches. So they're just shooting witches, and they just start taking off on brooms like when you flick on the light and the cockroaches scatter. I mean, it's the funniest thing. So I just giggle. There's nothing else like it.
Cut!
Well, you have to give Tommy credit for what he's done with this film. He's taken the very well-known Hansel and Gretel fairy tale and twisted it around, turned it on its head, and done something very unexpected and different with it, so that it's not the fairy tale for little kids anymore.
Bad move, witch hunter.
This is my reaction. I was smiling. That's fantastic.
What's your name?
In Norway, trolls have always been a big part of our childhood. We grew up, you know, watching trolls, reading about trolls, and I thought that would fit perfectly into this world for Hansel and Gretel.
Edward, who the fuck's Edward?
Edward's a really dynamic character. He is a slave of sorts to the dark side, with witches. He's a servant underneath the ground working for these people.
I always love these characters that are, they might seem simple and they're kind of going a little bit back and forth. Are they good or are they bad? But they just have a big heart. And I think even though Edward starts out as a villain in a way, he's just got a good heart.
Only when he's out in the forest and sees the brutality of what Berenger and his men are doing to Gretel does he realize that this is a worse crime than he can stomach. I think that shows the audience that he has a heart and that he's got a soul. And our goal with Edward was to make him real and make him come alive, which speaks to Tommy's instincts about not making him a CG creation.
I said from the beginning I really wanted to be an animatic troll, because the animatronic creatures had this feel to them if done right, they just had this own kind of soul, and I really wanted that.
Derek Mears is inside this suit, this creation. Derek is a big guy, and on top of him is an even bigger suit, so the effect is pretty great that there's this 8-9 foot creature in these scenes, talking with Gretel, holding Gretel, interacting with Berenger and his men. Of course, there's some help with computer graphics that we got as we finished the movie, but for the most part, he's a creation that existed on the set. And Derek was absolutely a part of bringing that character to life.
With the Edward character, it's pretty crazy. It's like I'm acting in a void, because my vision, I see out the character's mouth when it's open, but in the scenes, it's very rarely open. So you, as an actor, you almost have to take a mental picture of what you see, and you have to remember where that is for your movement, because during the scene, I'm completely blind.
What are you doing here? What's going on? I loved working with the troll, and because he was so imposing and so real looking, and even little expressions that he'd make, can't help but feel affected by that. It was like working with a real person. It was challenging at times. I mean, the suit weighs triple my weight, but for me it was a gift because it was a real thing.
Edward!
The head on this thing's this big, the hands are that big. It's a monster, and he's walking around this heavy. It's unbelievable what he had to do. There's a constant like a hair dryer, the cool air blowing in the mouth of this thing because it's physically exhausting and hot.
Tommy Morcola showed me an early version of the script, and we talked about some ideas that he had for Edward Troll. Once we arrived at a look that Tommy liked in the illustrations and in the maquettes, then we went on to build the full-size character. And we made some adjustments along the way. That the hands initially were too big, so we reduced the size of the hands. We made a couple of other minor modifications to make the performance come through. We have one person operating his eyes and his brows and the area around his eyes. One person operating all of his mouth movement, his jaw, and all the lip movement, including a tongue inside the mouth. And then there's one person each on each of his hands to operate the animatronic hands.
It's like I'm an astronaut in space. Like, you don't go into space by yourself. Yes, I am the astronaut and I control a lot of what's going on, but you have your guys on your intercom, you have, the guys who build this incredible ship that takes you to a place unknown. I feel very privileged to be a part of the team. It's challenging for me as an actor because I have partial control, but also we have to communicate with the guys from Spectral before we do a scene, like what the character's feeling and what the purpose of the scene is, to all kind of be on the same page.
How's it going?
Good to see you.
You too. He had a great team, and Derek did an amazing job portraying the innocence of Edward and the simpleness of his mind, and there's subtleties to that performance, and that it really needs somebody like Derek to pull off. And there's a great scene, where he heals Gretel, and his performance is kind of how careful he is to Gretel and how insecure he is. It really shines through, and it's without that Edward wouldn't have worked.
Edward, wanna knock?